How y'all doing out there in video land? This is Stiletto and General coming at you. Part number 2 from the Wild Wild West of the Recon M1. Recon M1. We finally got it apart. It was a bear, people. It was a bear. It was a super tough one to get apart. Perhaps the toughest one I've ever had to get apart out of all the cold steel knives I've ever taken apart. It was like super tough. All right, so we gotta get down. Gotta get down, kiddo. Say hi to everybody. Gonna watch yourself in the video a little bit later? I know you will. That's my sweetie. Okay. All right, Choo-Choo. All right, there we go. All right, so let's go ahead and put this one together. I took it all apart, cleaned it all up. Let's go ahead and lube it with our Militech 1 lube. Grease and lube. All right. Yeah, by the way, this one was a bear. This one's assembled, this one's made a little bit differently. It's got like a bar going across here in the flat, for the flat of the pivot, which is kind of cool. Because I imagine it'd be hard to wear that out. A little steel bar that they implanted in there. So that makes these scales different from other scales, people. It makes them different from other scales. I'm sort of curious to wonder if I could swap the scales around. That's what that scale looks like. This one has the blade stop in here really super tight. I think they don't like that to come, they don't want it to come loose and make that rattling noise. And that, you know, I always show you how to do the fix on that with the rubber cement. Anyway, I'm debating on whether I want to take this one apart and see if I can swap parts around. But, you know, we'll do that another day. We'll do that another day. Today we'll just stick to what I originally planned to do. Okay. So when you put this one in, this one has a flat. It's a D-shaped pivot. And because this one has a flat up top, instead of being flat forward, you got to put this one in accordingly. So you got to make sure you got the flat up top. Like so. All right. Next up, we're going to put the washers on. These have 2 phosphorus bronze washers and 1 Teflon washer. The 2 phosphorus bronze washers go against the scale, the handle scales, and the Teflon washer goes against the blade tang. So let's go ahead and lube them all up and get ready to put this thing back together. I like to lube up the washers with a little Militech 1 lithium-based gun grease. This side, I believe I make everything smooth by making sure everything's got really good lubrication on it. A little drop of oil. Next up is the next washer. This is the first time I've ever seen this kind of configuration where they have the 2 washers. And these washers are very thin too, people. So they're meant to be used together. Next up is the Teflon washer. Put a little drop of oil. These washers are bigger than normal size washers too. That's the other thing. Next up is the blade. I'm gonna put a little bit of lube on the blade. And a little bit of lube around the pivot. So the pivot's lubed also. Drop of oil. Okay, next up is another drop of oil. Now we're going to do the next Teflon washer. Get a little bit more lube on my fingers. A little bit more grease. I know a lot of you saying, wow, look at all that grease and lube he's using. I'm not afraid to use grease and lube, people. Because I was a mechanic for a long time in my life, and I know metal parts that rub together, they like grease and lube. They like to be lubricated. Can't be afraid to lubricate things. You always can wipe off the excess. All right. Next up is the lock bar. We do the leaf spring for the lock bar. These have actually a pretty nice tension on them. Next up is the pins. Do the groove side pins up. Lubricate the pins. Groove side pins up. The big pin goes in the front. That's your blade stop pin. Next up is the lock bar. Put a little lube on the side of the lock bar. I like to lube everything, people. I like to lube everything. All right. All right, let me wipe out my hands. Let's get rid of any excess too. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and see if we can get this all together. We got everything lined up, right? Hopefully we do. Maybe we don't have the pivot just right, because it looks like it doesn't want to pop on yet. So we're going to turn the pivot a little bit. We'll try to turn the pivot a little bit. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to put the pivot screw back in here. Let's see if we can turn it a little bit. Oops, got the wrong size bit in there. This one? Yeah, that one. Can't tell if that's going in all the way it's supposed to. Let's try pushing it through. Okay, there we go. It popped right there. Think we got it. Or maybe we don't. Maybe when I did that, it moved it a little bit, huh? Okay. I'm taking it back apart again, people. The way this one is, it's a little bit tricky. And I'll show you how I got it apart. I had to do a little trick. My toothpick, my chopsticks. Relieve the pressure off the blade. Spread this as much as you can. Put a chopstick in there. Get all the way down. And put the other one in. Now you got that one in. Now you just push on the handle. Comes apart. Okay, let's see what we got going on here, people. I don't know if the pivot's lining up just right. Yep, it moved. It moved. Moved a lot. Okay, so this is going to be the tricky part on this one, people, putting these back together, is getting the flat lined up just right so you can put your knife together. I would suggest if your pivots don't come all the way out, leave them in. Because maybe that's to your advantage if it doesn't come out. Looks like it should be right about there. Right about there. Okay, let's try it again. Let's try it again. I think I got it right this time. Now with these being so thin, I would recommend taking them all the way off and totally reinstalling them again. Just to make sure you don't pinch them. These already have lube on them, so I don't need to re-lube them. Now let's see if we can get this to go right. This is the tricky part, getting the pivot to line up. Try screwing it in tight. I think we have to get this all seated first. Looks like it's in. Kind of hard to tell. Yeah, it's still got a pretty good gap in there. Let me see. That pin's not seated all the way in. I don't know. It looks like it went down that time. Okay, I'm gonna put it together right here. Put it together and see what we got. I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of the way you got to put this one together though, and take it apart. It's a little bit tricky, people. I sort of like the way that they did the ones made in Taiwan better. Because those are easy to pull maintenance on, easy to take apart, easy to put it back together. This one's a little bit tricky. And what's tricky about it is the pivot. That's what I'm finding. What's tricky about it is the pivot. But the pivot looks like they did, came up with a pretty decent idea though to make the pivot area last longer without it wearing out. Because I think that putting a little piece of metal in there, hardened piece of steel or whatever, will make it not lose shape as easily. But they need to put it so that when you install the D-shaped pivot, it's in the right spot from the get-go. It's not turnable. Oh, it's smooth now. Oh yeah, we got a smooth knife, people. Got a smooth knife. Okay. It looks like everything's fitting together nice. I must admit though, people, this is not my favorite Recon one. I do like these better. If I'm going to choose between these two, I'm going to choose this one. I know this one has a new MagnaCut, and that I do like. I do love the MagnaCut. This one's the one that's made in Italy, people. This one's made in Taiwan. The blade looks beautiful. The edge looks beautiful. The grind lines look beautiful. The blade looks absolutely beautiful, but I'm not digging the way that they did the pivot on this, because it's I don't know, just made it more complicated than it needs to be. But the lock tension is right. And now it centers out perfectly, now that we've lubed and tuned it. Remember how it was before? Oh, we got a little bit of side to side. Let's tighten it up a little bit more. Let's see if that's right. A little bit too tight. No side to side there, no up and down. That's a little bit tighter though. Maybe that's the break-in spot. Nice and centered. I'm gonna leave it right here. I'm gonna let it break in right here. It's a good knife, people. It's different. It's definitely different. It's not like your original Recon ones. This one is different from this one. The Italian one is different from the Taiwanese one. Which one do I prefer? I'm gonna have to say the Taiwan one, people, because the Taiwan one's made like the original is made, you know, basically the handles are made like the original cold steel way that Cold Steel used to make the Recon one. The Andrew Demko design. And this one right here to me is easy to take apart. This knife is easy to take apart, easy to put back together, easy to pull maintenance on. The only thing that they really changed on this one is the grinds, which I like better because now you got a real sharpening choil. So I prefer the Taiwanese one, people. I'm gonna be blunt. I'm gonna tell you like it is. I'm telling you from my experiences. I absolutely love this one though. This one's a nice one too. It's very different though. It's very different. Functions perfectly. You know, we never did check out and see how sharp it was, huh? Let's see how sharp it is. I get a piece of paper here. All right. Razor. But that's to be expected though. This is a Cold Steel. And try to make little curly keys. It's super sharp, people. Super sharp. You don't have to worry about the sharpness on it. It's extremely sharp. It feels just like the old one. I can't tell the difference. As far as like the, you know, the way it feels in hand. Let's see how thick the lock bar is. See if they went back to the thicker lock bar or they're still using the thinner lock bar. I did a video previously on this one where on the new Recon one, and the lock bars were thinner than, a little bit thinner than the original ones. Let's see what the lock bar is like on these. Okay, get all zeroed out. Lock bar thickness, 3.78. The 3.75 now it says. 3.75. We're going to go with 3.75. 3.81. So they went with a little bit thicker lock bar again, like the original Cold Steel did. The original Cold Steel was a 3.85, I think it was, for the lock bar. Now this is 3.84. Okay, this is 3.85. Okay, it's the same. Same as the original size lock bars, people. The blade thickness, 3.51 millimeter. Whoa, this is a real 3.5 millimeter blade. Whereas like the original Cold Steels had a 3.4 millimeter. So the Italian blade is a little bit thicker. It goes to a nice tip. This would be a nice knife for cutting, actual cutting chores. Look at the blade tip on it. It's nice and, you know, it's not too thin, it's not too delicate, but it is a more delicate, I wouldn't pry with it, blade tip. But, so, you know, you can do those more detailed cutting chores with your blade tip. I like it, people, but it's different. You know, I think it sort of rubbed me the wrong way about how hard it was to get it apart. That's a big thing that sort of turned me off on this one. But other than that, it's a nice knife. The phosphorus bronze setup is different. You got two phosphorus bronze washers on each side of the blade, with the Teflon washer going against the blade tang. The Teflon washers are very thin. The Teflon washer is about the same thickness as they've always used for the Teflon washers. It's just wider. It's a bigger washer. The washers all together are bigger. They're wider. But the phosphorus bronze washers are very thin. They're like paper thin. So when you take it apart, if you take it apart and lube it all up and put it back together, I would suggest Not trying to put the pivot in with the washers already on. Put your pivot in first, put your washers on, then put your blade tang on, then put your washers on, then put your handle on. But you just got to make sure that the pivot is lined up for the other side. That's for the trickiest part about taking this one apart and putting it back together is the pivot. The rest of it works pretty easily. It has very tight tolerances, so it's very hard to get apart. But we did it. I was going to modify this one, but this, as hard as this one is to get apart and the way the scales are and everything, I think I'm just going to leave this one the way it is, people. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. I'm not going to modify it. I'll save the modifications for my Taiwan ones. This one, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. And also, I'm not going to get another one. I know I got this one because I just wanted to see what it was like and see, you know, what the differences were. Now I know. This will be a collector. Why is it going to be a collector? Well, I like my Tontos a little bit better, people. I'm a Tonto person when it comes to these. Oh, there comes a Juno. There comes a Juno making her entrance. That's my sweetie. That's my sweetie. Mm-hmm. Big old grandpa girl. She's the big old grandpa girl. Mm-hmm. Which one do you like better, sweetie? The Tonto or the clip blade? Grandpa likes the Tontos. I like this one. This is the new one. It's got the new Super Steel MagnaCut. It's the new Shiznet. Absolutely love it, people. But these are, you know, I got this one for $196 from Cold Steel using my military discount. It lowered it down to, what was it, 180 something. And then I had to pay the tax or whatever. Shipping was free. But, you know, I think this is a nice knife. Do I think it's worth spending the extra money to get this one over a S35VN model? That's up to you, how important it is for you to have MagnaCut, I guess. With me, I love MagnaCut. I absolutely love MagnaCut, but I like S35VN also. So, I don't know. If I can get this one for $100 without a discount, without using my military discount on any website, just about, and it has the blade style that I like, and it's made in Taiwan, this one's easier to pull apart and put back together and have it function perfectly. Whereas this one is not so easy to pull apart and put back together. But other than that, though, it functions perfectly. It functions perfectly. It's just not the easiest one to pull the maintenance on. And that's like the big, I don't know, it's like the big thing for me. It's like, you know, because I like to pull apart my knives and re-lube them and oil them and pull maintenance on them. And this one's going to be a pain in the butt to do that with. So it's not my favorite, people. It's not my favorite. I think I prefer the Taiwan ones. Even though this is, you know, the fit and finish on this is perfect. Fit and finish on it is perfect. You know, everything lines up perfectly. You know, there's no, the lock bar doesn't sink down or anything like that. Everything lines up perfectly. It's got the super duper MagnaCut. It's got the clip point for those who like the clip point blade the best. And, you know, at $196, I can't say this is a bad bargain because it's got MagnaCut. Everybody knows how MagnaCut's expensive right now. So for the price I paid for this, I think it's pretty much, you know, an okay price, you know, right around $200. But I don't really know if I think MagnaCut to me, for my personal uses, is worth spending that extra $100 just to get this MagnaCut blade. That's where I'm going with this. And I prefer the way that the Taiwan one is put together over the way that this one's put together, because I think this pivot would never wear out. This pivot will never wear out because that steel insert, the hardened steel insert, but it makes it difficult to reassemble and to take apart. So, I don't know. Y'all saw all the problems I have with trying to take this one apart. And I think you've all seen me take it apart these kinds before and put them back together, and it's a lot easier. But this is a beautiful knife, people. I absolutely love it. And you know what? I think I am going to leave it out, because this would be a good one to, you know, carry like this. And I'm going to leave it just like this. I'm going to leave it all blacked out. I might put a snaggle tooth on it, though. That might be the only thing I do to it, is put a snaggle tooth on it. But other than that, I'm going to just leave this one the way it is. Y'all know I like to modify my stuff, but this one's a pain in the butt. But I still absolutely love the knife, though. I think it's a great knife. All right, people. But June and I are going to tune out. We're done. Peace out. Stiletto.